We're back with another shitty review of lineups, and I'm going to be reviewing the entire TR assault rifle lineup today, plus NS equivalents. I'll probably be doing all the NS weapons on every time I review, just in context of that faction that I'll be doing. For example, like NS weapons within the context of the NC's arsenal when I'm reviewing all the NC light machine guns. I'll give you whether or not the Naginata and the NS-15M are worth your time on that compared to the other two. You get the idea. I'll be covering them every single video, so maybe in future videos I won't cover them as much. I'll cover them in a shorter amount of time. But yeah, I will be covering them. So we're going to start things off, and I already have the right one equipped. Wow. So the Cycler TRV is a Terran Republic only weapon. It's the only 845-143 weapon. Let me get a little closer to the targets here, since I'm not a light assault with ambushers. It is an extremely fast rate of fire, but it is also extremely uncontrollable. So, flash suppressor, I tend to run one on this just because the sheer rate of fire means that there's a lot more muzzle flare. Tends to help. You're definitely going to want to run a 1X on this. There's no real high-powered optic choice because LeMayo 845 RPM. There is an ALS available and a forward grip. Both are viable. I ran forward grip for a long time because it helps narrow down the horizontal recoil a little bit so that it's just kind of vertical, and that really helps put the pain on the enemy. But laser sight, if you're going in close to get that that epic hip fire. It's not as good as the TAR, I believe, but if you're at the range that you're considering to use this weapon, it's not going to matter. This thing does a lot of damage very quickly, and it's the only weapon that can do this, really. No other faction has a weapon that comes close to this amount of DPS on their medic. Stats are pretty straightforward: 845, 143 at 10, 100 at 60. Has a pretty steep drop-off. That's 2 damage tiers. 3 damage tier drop-off now, actually. Holy crap. 550 meters a second. That's above carbines, but still pretty slow compared to other assault rifles. 3.1 and 4.1 second reload. Very, very painful if you fire off all the bullets. Try to get at least 1 round in the mag when you reload. Otherwise, you will be hurting. 40 rounds in the magazine. That's a lot of damage and a lot of DPS. So to compensate, there's a pretty slow reload speed, as you can tell. Hip fire accuracy is pretty good. Aim accuracy is pretty good as well. Slightly worse, I believe. But the real kick is the recoil. The recoil is just unholy. It's just here. Gonna aim at this guy's head, level out. Just no compensation. Look at that cone of fire, boys. That is just holy crap. You really cannot hold this down for very long. You need to control it if you want to go out a little bit further. But yeah, this is mostly a close range weapon. My verdict, I'd recommend getting it, but eventually once you get good, I would recommend moving on to the TAR. We'll get there in a minute. Yeah, where's the next one? Nope. 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 Guess we can do the NS-11A. The NS-11A is a very versatile weapon. Optics from 1 to 4x. Really, it's your personal choice. I've seen people run 3Xs on here, and they're pretty good with them. Pretty straightforward assault rifle, very balanced. 652, 143, similar to other NS weapons. 125 at 65. It's always a 4 headshot kill, meaning soft point is not required on this weapon because you do not need to extend your headshot kill range. You will always do 4 headshot kill, meaning that soft point in this case is a direct downgrade in my opinion because you do not need 5 extra meters of 7 body shots. 1 more bullet is not going to kill you. What you can do, however, is HVA. HVA on this weapon does make a little bit of sense, although if you don't want that reduced max damage range, which doesn't really matter anymore, then I would avoid it. But now, since it doesn't increase your recoil anymore, I would definitely consider it. Very strong attachment. I believe you can do laser sight on this one. Alright, laser sight on this one is not nearly as good as on the 11C, but it is still somewhat viable. But what you really, I think the more meta build is definitely foregrip comp. Comp being very strong to make you a very good aimed weapon, but also is going to make you show up farther away. However, look at that recoil. This weapon also has access to .75 like other NS weapons, and it reloads very quickly, 2 and 2.45. That's very fast. Also, what's very fast is the muzzle velocity. 640 meters a second is already like sniper rifle level. With HVA, it's going to go even higher. Sorry about that. Mic was messed up. But what we also have a 35 round mag. So in conclusion, jack of all trades weapon. Don't use this competitively, in my opinion. I think there's better choices out there, but definitely a good one to round out your arsenal. And if you're looking for a balanced assault rifle to do your directive with, it's not. You know, it's worth looking at. Where's the next one? The Yumi. Okay. The Yumi got buffed and changed a lot. It used to be a 143 weapon. Then they decided, okay, it's going to be 167 and 2 point. You know, it's going to do 5 rounds burst, I think. Yes. It can one headshot or one burst kill with headshots. Since it does fire 5 bullets, you only need 3 of those to land on the head within 10 meters to kill the target. It does very decent muzzle velocity, a little bit lower, not as high as the NS11. So definitely would recommend. Actually, on this one I forgot. You want soft point on this one. Don't want HVA. HVA is viable if you want extra velocity, but definitely go for soft point in my opinion, because then it's 167 at 15. I forgot about that. It has access to a grenade launcher and a smoke launcher, but don't use that again. I covered that in the last video. They're jokes. They're not really helpful. I'd go extend magazines if you can manage the recoil, or foregrip if you want a little bit less horizontal recoil. But the recoil is already very low after they buffed it recently with the horizontal tolerance that I wouldn't bother with the foregrip. I'd just go extended mags. Comp is meta. Go with comp on this weapon to help with the recoil and get a 1x or a 3-4 if you can manage it. 2x if you can too. I like 2x's. Very useful. It has a delay before firing. Does not have 0.75 on this one. The delay is under half a second, but if you're in close quarters, it can fuck you over. I'm aiming down sight, and I'm going to press left mouse button, and I'm going to release it. I'm going to release both mouse keys. You do remain ADS for the duration of the burst if you are aimed down sight. Similarly, you cannot scope in during the burst if you've already pressed the button. When you press the fire button, bullets are going to come out. So be careful when you pull the trigger. You don't want to hit friendlies or anything like that. In conclusion, meme gun for the Kabuto, the samurai helmet. Don't fuck with it, in my opinion. It's not worth it. The Saber. The Saber. During the range adjustments, it got out. It got nerfed from 143 min damage to 125. In practicality, it doesn't hurt the weapon terribly because it's 125 at 90, which is an extremely long distance for an assault rifle. But still, it does make it a little less competitive because that's 4 bursts that you're going to need to hit at 90 meters for body shots only. But other than that, it's a 600 RPM 167 weapon. Very stable, 620 meters a second muzzle velocity. I run HVA on it just to get a little bit more, since obviously it is a burst weapon, and if you find yourself in close range with this, you are going to get screwed over. There's only 2x bursts on this. The aim accuracy was tightened up immensely after much criticism, where the Saber was basically a burst carbine that was less accurate than the T1B after it got buffed. It was in a very bad place for a long time. Nowadays, it's uncommon to see, but it's still viable, I think, in my opinion. I think if you can get yourself into a good position, a good firing position, this thing has the potential to lay out a ton of damage on the enemy before they realize what's happening, and allows you to reposition, and doesn't really lock you into a position, in my opinion. Because of the 2x burst, you can, basically just take bursts, and you don't feel like you have to stick around with it like with a full auto weapon. It's a psychological thing, but it does affect the gameplay, in my opinion. The hip accuracy is, I think, slightly worse than average, but again, it is a burst carbine. It is burst assault rifle, I'm sorry. We're done with carbines. It is a burst weapon, so that is going to factor into it. 30 rounds at 167 damage, so pretty standard. Reloads in 2.6 short and 3.2 long. Definitely want to go with the foregrip, the advanced foregrip, and compensator, because this is an aim assault rifle. If you don't like aim assault rifles, steer the fuck clear of this one, so yeah. It has a wonky, when you're moving, it has a wonky thing it does with the scope. I think it has to do with the fact that when you move, like as you can see, just this is a tidbit, when you're standing still, it has a pretty predictable up-down, and that gets mirrored here. It's just up-down with the scope. But when you move, it moves like up-down a little bit from back to front as you're walking, and I think that's what contributes to that. But ignore what the sight is doing, just focus on the reticle and the bullets, and you should overcome that. It kind of threw me off for a little bit. I think that bug hasn't been around for more than like a year. But it kind of threw me off the first time I fired it again. Do not try to engage. My recommendation with this, if you do go down this one, it's a viable one, but I would not pick it up unless you're into this kind of playstyle. Do not attempt to engage too many targets with this one. You will get overwhelmed. It is a burst weapon, meaning that unlike a full auto weapon which can go seamlessly from target to target, this one takes a little bit more of an acquisition time because each bullet matters. If you pull the trigger and miss, that's an entire burst that you're missing. And while you can chain burst very quickly to the point that it might as well be full auto once you get good enough, still that's precious, milliseconds wasted when the average time to kill is half a second, which is 50 milliseconds. Or 500 milliseconds. Sorry. Conclusion, get it eventually. If you like this playstyle, get it early. But if you don't, get it later. Not really worth your time if you're not into that playstyle. Standard stock T1 cycler. Guess we can cover its variants here too. Again, just bypass the T1S. 750, 143 at 10 meters, 112 at 80. 580 meters a second, pretty average. 2.7 short, 3.5 long. 40 rounds. Good aim accuracy, pretty standard aim accuracy, and decent hipfire accuracy. Nothing to write home about either of those categories. This was my godsend weapon for a long time, and I think I've got, I Iraqed it and then used it for a little bit longer until I went back to the TAR. But this thing's extremely stable. I chose to run a flash suppressor on it. You don't have to. It doesn't really change the performance of the weapon other than you show up farther away on the minimap. So it's really optional whether or not you want to run it. This weapon's extremely stable and very versatile, even if it doesn't have a whole lot of attachments. There's no ammo attachments. I'd recommend running foregrip because laser sight on assault rifles doesn't usually tend to work out unless it's dedicated hipfire weaponry. So I definitely would go with forward grip, flash suppressor if you want to, and 1x or 2x on this weapon. You can full auto burst people out to a decent distance with this, and just don't expect to get chain headshots at this range that I'm shooting at because the cone of fire will bloom past it. When you can't aim. Yeah. So you get this by stock. I would definitely consider use this towards your Araxium. It definitely is very stable, good standard weapon, and you will use this for a long time to come if you enjoy this type of weapon. It's very good all-rounder. There's no situation in which this weapon falls short. Definitely use it to get the Unity. We'll cover the Unity in a second. T1B is the burst variant. So what you get is worse hipfire accuracy, just to compare the stats. You get worse hipfire accuracy, you get 2 extra bullets to round out the clip so you don't end up with 1 on the last trigger pull, and you get better aim accuracy, starting aim accuracy. Same bloom, but better starting aim accuracy. This does have access to HVA, and I'd recommend using it. Because losing, 2 meters of 7-shot body shot is not really a problem. But you do gain extra velocity, which is what this weapon needs, considering it is a burst weapon. Go forward grip, burst weapon, obviously. Flash suppressor if you want to stay off the radar a little more. And reflex. There's a lot of bullets in the mag, and there are a lot of bullets in all the TR's magazines. So I would definitely I would recommend in general to run a flash suppressor on most of these weapons, since you are a medic and you are going to be, found in combat amongst the other, people running around, unlike light assault in our last video, where you might want to be a little bit more concealed off the radar when you're firing, even if it means you get spotted a little bit easier visually. So Since you're a ground pounder with medic, general comment here, I would recommend running a flash suppressor on these weapons. Can't hurt. If you don't like it, you can always take it off. It's only hard inserts. But yeah, here's the burst weapon. Look at that hit, cone of fire, guys. Every other stat is pretty much similar, identical actually. The reload's identical, the long reload's identical. Damage model is even identical. But the S variant sucks because it has the grenade launcher. But it has every single attachment available to it, so I guess that's kind of cool. I wouldn't recommend running this weapon, which is sad because I want a banana mag on my fucking T1. Why? Why, Higby? Why did you forsake us? But I digress. Anyway. It loses RPM basically to become a shittier T1, and yeah, has slightly better short reload speed though, if that's any consolation to the fact it sucks major balls. Don't use this. T1A Unity is a cycler with soft point ammunition, which is why the muzzle velocity is 551. It's a rounding error. It should just be 550, but it is 143 at 15 meters. Unique, kind of cool. I think it has slightly worse horizontal recoil. I don't know why I have a yellow dot on here. Where's my cross sight? There it is. It's shiny. It's a shiny T1. So if you like that, I'd recommend getting it. It's also a T1 with soft point, which does help it a little bit. It used to not help it at all because it used to still be a 125 minimum damage, and as we've said before, if you've always got a 4 headshot kill, soft point does not help you. So, but in this case, it does help a little bit now that it drops to 112 at 80. It drops 2 damage tiers, meaning that your headshot kill range is extended a little bit more. Just due to the fact that the max damage range is pushed out a little further. Not very much, but helps a little bit. So, would I recommend going for it? Yeah, if you've got the time. TR also has a lot of viable assault rifles to choose from. There is a plethora of, for varying playstyles to choose from to do directive. I believe I did the NS11. I did the Cycler TRV. Where's the other one? I did not do the Saber. I did the T1 stock, so that's 3. I did the TAR, and then I did the Torque, that's 5. We'll get to these 2 in a second. But yes, there is a very, very large types of playstyles. There's a lot of playstyles that you can do to acquire this, so I definitely would say it's worth going for your time if you're going, even if you're just going for the directive points, because this this weapon may not be anything to write home about, but it's easy to acquire, and it's kind of a, I guess a status symbol. I don't know what the correct word to be used here would be. Moving on to the TAR, the 800-143 .75 ADS assault rifle available to the TR. Now, I believe I stopped running a flash suppressor on here, on live, but it's up to you again if you want to use it. Foregrip laser sight is available here. Advanced laser sight. I don't know why the standard laser sight is on this. I think that's a bug from a long time ago, but ALS is available to it if you like to use that. Soft point is pretty much required on this weapon, since even previously it dropped more than 2 damage tiers. So it would definitely be usable on this weapon. And it's useful on this weapon for little to no trade-off. 1X is pretty much going to be your standard. I actually run a forward grip on this instead of laser sight. This weapon is stable, extremely stable, with a forward grip attached to the point that you can take full advantage of that .75 ADS. The laser sight, however, is also viable if you want to run it. It's tighter than the TRV, as you can see. Very good. I'm not one to hip fire out to mid-range, though. I've said that before. I think it's not as useful as aiming. As you can see, you can just rip people's heads off with this fucking weapon. So I definitely like to run foregrip. And most of the people that I come across actually do too. ALS, to me is only an TRV. I was thinking HV45 for some reason. Is only for the TRV in my opinion. I would not recommend it for the TAR, just out of, you know, my personal preference for the forward grip. But it is viable and it does give you a better hipfire advantage. Yet I would still strongly urge you to consider taking the forward grip to take full advantage of that 0.75 ADS. Ooh, my Sunday's about to despawn. There you go. More stats on it, 570 meters a second, which is interesting because it's actually pretty much on par with the T1, which is, you know, 580. Yeah, you don't actually lose a whole lot on velocity considering it's a short-range assault rifle. You lose more damage profile, which drops an extra damage tier to 100 instead of 112. Basically 3 seconds on short, it's 2.97, so 3 seconds. And 4.1 long. Try to get the short reload. The long reload punishes you severely. Good hipfire accuracy, average aim accuracy, but it gets better with the forward grip. Would you get this? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. You should get this weapon. This weapon is meta. This weapon is so fucking meta, it gets used in competitive matches. It gets used by pro players who are playing medic. This weapon has a lot of upsides that are easily counteractable downsides. I cannot imagine a situation in which this weapon is, you know, not viable except for extreme long ranges. This is an S tier weapon. Buy this weapon and use it. It is very good. It is very fucking good. The other two factions may have slightly better recoil values on theirs, being the GR22 and the HV45 specifically. Those are the two faction alternatives. They're also 800, 143 with 0.75. They have slightly better recoil values, but this extra 10 bullets, oh my god, it is very nice when farming. And it is very nice in general combat too, because their reloads are pretty much identical. They're not much faster reloads, but they get less bullets. They get 30 bullets. I think the TAR of the three is honestly the strongest one. Buy this gun and use it. Do it. The Torque 9. Alright, just 1 second. The Torque is highly versatile. It's got a weird damage profile, but 857 125 is similar to 750 143. So you might be asking yourself, well, Dev, why should I use this over the T1 if it's identical? Well, because it's got a lot of caveats for the fact that it has lower damage per magazine. Like this number. Jesus Christ, that muzzle velocity is awesome. It is so high. And it helps that it's high because you're going to want soft point on it. Soft point to get that extra 4 headshot kills of 15 meters. After that, you can also run HVA on this. I've heard people run HVA on this, but I wouldn't really recommend it. But it does give you a little bit better muzzle velocity. I think it bumps up to 650 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number I came up with, but it does bump it up a little more to more sniper rifle level very fast. I would go with soft point though, just for general purpose. I have a forward grip on it because it's an aiming weapon in my opinion, but you can run a laser sight on it. It is good enough to do that. And I run compensator. If you're going to run aim build, go forward grip and compensator. If you're going to run ALS or laser build, go laser, no barrel. Or flash suppressor now since it's not as bad. But that's up to you. 1x optics in my opinion. Low power optics work best with this weapon. And let me show you why. Oh yeah, the reload. Also in exchange for having lower damage per magazine, 40 rounds and 125 damage, you get a super fast reload. 2.1 short, 2.9 long. That's a very, very close difference. So you can rip out all the bullets in the magazine without being screwed over as hard, but still helps you to have bullets in the mag when you reload because this thing has massive uptime. It is crazy. If you pair this with a shield bubble, you can easily, you know, fire, shoot. Oh, I'm taking damage, duck behind cover, shields up, and reload at the same time. Super fast uptime. You have shields out again, fire, and you're good. It's extremely fast. In conclusion, I'd get this gun. I would get this gun eventually if you want a versatile weapon. I definitely would get the tar first. Get the tar before everything else because holy crap, the tar is nice. But if I had to put it in order of effectiveness for general purpose, I'd go tar, torque, and then the next three would be equal. It would be the T1, the T1B, and the Saber 13, and then the TRV. The TRV I'd get last because the TRV is very gimmicky, and compared to the TAR, you can do a lot of the same things that the TAR can do, but you're limited to 0.5 movement speed, and you have basically a more punishing weapon in terms of recoil and hip fire. So it's up to you what order you buy this in, but I would definitely strongly recommend looking at those in that order. The TAR, then the Torque, then the T1, T1B, and Saber, and finally the TRV. But again, this is all up to your playstyle, and depending on what you like to do, I've already covered it. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I will see you on the next one, where I believe, light machine guns tomorrow. Take it easy, guys.